We'll call the Board of Directors meeting for Thursday, August 28th, 2025. Would you mind taking the roll, please?
Sure, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Shire.
Here.
Mr. Georges. Here. Mr. Messino.
Here.
Mr. Lombardi. Present. Director Alvedi.
Present.
Mr. Benoit.
Here.
Mr. Crowley.
Here.
Mr. Leach.
Here.
Thank you. So we have a quorum, and the first item of business today is board approval to consider for approval the draft meeting minutes of the Board of Directors meeting of July 24th, 2025.
Motion to approve minutes.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it. The motion carries. The second item on the agenda is board approval to consider for approval the executive session meeting minutes of the Board of Directors meeting of July 24th, 2025.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it. The motion carries. The next item on the agenda is public comment. And we will, as we have for the last several years, be asking everyone to abide by a 3-minute per person limit so that we could both hear everybody that is attending and also have time for the board to act on items. Yes.
I think we may skip the third item.
I did. Board approval, to consider for approval draft meeting minutes of the special Board of Directors meeting of August 7th, 2025.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion second, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carries. So now on to the public comment. And again, I'll ask everybody to be mindful that there's a 3-minute per person limit so that everybody has a chance to say something.
Good afternoon, members of the board. And I'm also going to remind you that there's a 3-minute limit. So I will be the one notifying you that 3 minutes is up. And we appreciate your consideration in that.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the CEO report.
Thank you, Director. You have the CEO report this month. We do have the preliminary financials for 6/30/25. It's still preliminary, there's still adjustments that can be coming in pretty close to what we thought we'd be. I also did want to just call out the employee spotlight for the month. Rick Zora, who's in our transportation department, another person who just does great work every day. I just want to make sure we start calling those items. Thank you. With that, if there's any questions on the CEO report, I'm happy to answer.
Yes.
I noticed after the adjustments, or anticipated adjustments, where do you think we're going to end up for fiscal 25?
I think we're going to end up pretty close to balance. One of the adjustments is the oil and gas tax approval that we get from the city that we don't have yet. So that's at least $3 million, I believe.
So we have, right now, on this paper, $7 million year-to-date from state subsidies down, and you know that there's going to be some adjustments. So where do we think that $7 million is going to be?
Probably -2.
What were we expecting in the state that we're not getting?
I have to get back to you on that. I forget which one of the streams is down a little bit, I believe. But it depends on that adjustment too, so I'll get you that information.
Any other questions? Thank you. The next item on the agenda is board discussion, potential vote on service changes.
Thank you, Director. So as the board knows, after this before the last meeting, the governor intervened and asked them to delay the vote. I was able to follow up shortly after that meeting and have a discussion around his concerns and the types of things that he wanted to see. The biggest thing that he wanted to see was he didn't want to see any routes go completely away. And he also raised, I think, concerns around our administrative costs, the federal funding, and how we kind of really need to dig into that to, again, avoid provide some of those comments. He also flagged for us that he wants to understand what our plan is around fares. Other agencies are putting in place multi-year adjustments, some of them tied to inflation, so that you kind of know what's coming. But I think even just broader, like what percentage of our costs are covered by fares, what are our benchmarks, and how are we going to go about that? In the end, we went back and took that information, took those questions into consideration, worked closely with the scheduling team, and were able to bring the cuts down by about half. We were able to preserve all routes, we're able to eliminate any possible layoffs at this time, and we're actually bolstering the paratransit program by moving some of those operators over there and decreasing the reliance on outside contracts. This puts more people on our vehicles with our drivers, and in light of the right anywhere being made permanent, this is a big adjustment that has to happen, and I think it's a positive step. In the end, the governor then stepped in and is dedicating an additional $3 million to finish the deficit. So we started with a $32 million deficit not too long ago, and we're now at a point where we're not fully eliminating the routes, we're not laying anybody off, and then we're actually bolstering the ADA service to a degree. These changes are necessary. I appreciate the governor's support. I'm thankful for General Assembly support as well. We'll continue to chip away at this, and we've got this down to approximately $4 million, what these cuts represent. Of course, these funds, we're asking for funds. We also have to be able to take whatever we get and put it to the best possible use. There's a bunch of things as we work internally that this actually does. I understand that the benchmark may be the amount of fixed service on the road every day, but there's a lot more to this agency than just that. And I'll say that I think, looking at how we schedule our work, we heard repeatedly about layover time, recovery time, even hours of the day, and how we kind of scrunch all this together. This is actually giving us a chance to kind of take a step back and kind of figure some different things out, improve some of the working conditions on the roads. Again, reduce the reliance on outside contracts, which we have very little control over. If there is an issue with a rider or an operator who's not one of ours, especially with the training programs that we have and the technology in our vehicles that we have today, and that we're hoping to expand upon. So with that said, our goal is to take the resources we do have, put out the most reliable service, work with our workforce itself to give them the best possible experience to maintain them, to do these difficult jobs. We're also going to be pushing some employees over to the maintenance department, which will help us kind of catch up some of the bus shelter cleaning and amenities that we've been struggling to get ahead of. We will be coming to the board over the next few months on some different requests for approvals, whether it's new fare technology components that allow us to accept open payments, new systems for data analysis. The team had demoed a program this past summer where we saw significant improvement in terms of the information at our fingertips. So the passenger called, we could answer where their bus was faster, and we actually can turn that over to the riders as well. We'll see that information and be able to have a better picture as to what's happening on the street. So I think there's a lot of work that we have to do ahead of us. And again, I just want to thank the governor and the General Assembly for all the help they have given us to take us down from a starting point to where we are now. With that, Director, I will come back to you.
First, I want to commend you and your staff for the hard work and long hours. This is a tough thing to work on. And you and your staff, all of them, along with the unions that represent drivers here, have worked hard together to come up with this set of recommendations. During that process, did you use the efficiency study for guidance on making these decisions?
We did.
Of the decisions that you made, dollar sum or most, how would you characterize that part of the efficiency study recommendation?
It informed the entire process we took. I think looking at the rankings of the routes, which was not just ridership, it was trips per hour, it was several variables, easy to create access. We used that as a starting point. But then the difficult part of that was purely working off that those lower quantity routes don't cost us a lot to operate. So we looked at a few different things. One of them that you see on the R line is, that's been mentioned, is instead of us running the same frequency all day, we preserve as much of the peak frequency as we can, but then midday it might drop a little bit, which actually provides a lot of relief to how we can schedule. And the nighttime it could drop at one point. And that does tie to what we see in ridership. And get that, the same frequency all day is obviously standard, but without the financial funds to support that, these are adjustments we can make that we think supports the ridership as of today. We also looked at the express routes, which we've known even before the efficiency study, that those routes had the hardest hit during the COVID pandemic and have had the worst recovery thus far. We've tried to realign some of them, but for example, we're running 4 or 5 trips out to different areas, and the ridership per trip is about 5 people. And so there's some of these trips, by taking out some of the trips, preserving what we can, we're trying to maintain access, but trying to kind of just make that a little bit more efficient. And so we use the study to help us understand that and execute things.
So the reason I ask this is that a mandate last year by the legislature codified a requirement for you to implement, to have an efficiency study and to implement the changes that are recommended in the plan. How would you report that back to the legislature that set that as a basic requirement of the agency?
So we will be having lots of conversations this fall about kind of where we are financially, what this did, and really unpack it, because there is a lot to this. It's difficult to explain all these different pieces and parts, but we'll put the onus on us and we'll do that work.
But the way I'm seeing it is that you were mandated to have an efficiency study and implement recommendations of that. And it appears to me that you have accomplished that. You've had the study done, and you have now, as part of these changes that you're proposing to make, implemented the efficiency study recommendations. Other members of the board? Chairman Clark?
Sure. I'm going to speak off the one-page sheet that you gave in terms of the adjustments, when we started at 30 million and so forth. So the first bucket, efficiency actions, we're going. And it has nothing to do with any of the cuts. The next budget, new revenue, presumably, hopefully, we can do all of these things. Has nothing to do with the cuts. State revenue is simply the next bucket or block. We have those funds. So the cuts, really, we need to look at what I'll call the last block, if you will. I have some doubts about the congestion mitigation and air quality improvement program is going to have to go through. DOT is going to have to write to Federal Highway for permission to transfer the funds. The state planning group has to consent to writing, which I don't think we will. The Federal Transit Agency is going to have to approve whatever it is that we are going to propose using those funds for, which presumably is to fill in operating expenses, which I think, the way I read literature on that act, most of that is designed to deal with air quality and congestion. So we may have a hard time making the case for that, and most of those funds are for capital, not for operations. So we have to get the FTA with what I think is probably not a very friendly federal administration at the moment to Rhode Island to sort of jump through some hoops and approve the thing that is not standard, if you will. So I'm a little worried that 3 million ever comes through.
Now, let me ask you about that 3 million. How do you feel about that? Have you had any discussions? Do you have any sense of how the federal government is going to treat that?
Frankly, we've traded CMAQ funds between our two agencies over the years.
You've done it for years?
We get about $3 million a year now.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just a one-time increase in the allocation. And then we used, I think the point around capital is a good one. However, there's exemption in the R line. I don't think enough in federal law that, and rail, rail the state, that we can use those funds to reimburse those services. So we do have eligible expenses. So I think from where I sit, I'm not the expert.
How do the experts that you hired feel about the ability to do that?
On this specific one, I haven't checked that with them, but I can do that.
And have we ever done any of these transfers
Every year.
under the new federal administration?
Yes.
We have?
Within the past, month, I believe, we did one.
Well, if that comes through, that's not new money.
Mhm.
We have to pay it back.
Yep.
So there's no new money here at all. So I'm looking at this box. The impact of the target rate adjustments, we're going to save 4.4 million. Paratransit increase going to cost us 2.31. Now you can't net those two numbers because if we didn't have the cuts, we that 2.31 is going to be some other number. And I think we should find a way to eliminate private taxi service anyway. So the bottom line is, I think the hole, if you will, is definitely not a $10 million hole anymore because we can do these top things. So now we're dealing with a smaller amount. So I'm sitting here as a board member. I feel like I have a fiduciary duty as a board member that I can't, I have to vote on the budget that is going to be a balanced budget. I can't say that we're going to thumb our nose at the General Assembly and the governor and we're going to spend an extra $5 million or $10 million. That ends up being the number. I can't feel like as a board member I can do that. So therefore I would have to vote for the cuts. In fact, I said at the last meeting that I was reluctantly prepared to do that because we didn't have anything else on the table. And then the governor's letter came in a few minutes before the meeting, and it was basically to have further negotiations. So I'm going to suggest that we have further discussion in a sense as a potential solution, because I also sit here as a person living in the state of Rhode Island and who's been familiar over the years with state budgets and supplemental appropriations and all these other things. And it makes absolutely no sense to me, in a $14 million a year budget, that we are making these cuts to public housing. And the case has been made by the folks. We had hundreds of people testifying at the public hearings that we had, heartbreaking. We had emails coming in, we had all these things coming in. So it makes no sense that we can't find $5 million in the supplemental budget. The suggestion's been made that let's have a special session in the General Assembly, call for that. That's a real long shot, I know, see that happening. However, I think the support in the General Assembly to approve $5 million in a supplemental budget is definitely there, if the governor asks for it. And why do I say that? What's my proof of that? First of all, on the Senate side, the vote was 16 to 20 to not add $10 million to the budget. A swing of 3 votes, we would have, the Senate would have rejected the House budget. And I've been around a long time. I can't recall, and I may be wrong in this, the Senate ever rejecting the House budget on the last day of the General Assembly session? You have?
One time.
One.
It poisoned the relationship between the chambers
Right.
pretty significantly. I see Representative Tansey's head nodding it. That when they did that,
Yeah.
that made things very difficult for the state to operate on a number of years.
So a lot of those 20 votes that said, no, we're not going to change the budget to add 10 million RIPTA, wasn't because they were against adding $10 million to RIPTA. There was an institutional issue that we don't want to blow up the budget on the last day of the session for the very things that you mentioned. So I think we have tremendous support in the Senate that if the governor puts in the supplemental budget, let's say $5 million, or up to $5 million, if that's what we need at the end, that the Senate will pass it. Now, on the House side, the House, at the time, they voted on the budget. They didn't have the efficiency study that they mandated that we bring in by March 1, so that's on us that it didn't get done. So we're not in an unreasonable position to say, the House want to see that efficiency study because you folks may be totally inefficient. And now I think we all agree, or should agree, that the efficiency study shows that you're really efficient in terms of.
Well, hold on, let's not draw conclusions that are false here. As far as I see, the recommendations that were given to us by the efficiency study authors that were here addressing the board on August 7th said we should explore additional opportunities for use of federal funds. They exist, and probably won't be enough to cover the cost savings, but they'll offset the shortfall. We did that, right? Okay. They said federalized positions linked to capital budget. These are the experts. We did that, right? You're doing that as part of this plan. They said increase the use of federal formula funds to reimburse route segments for rural, low income, and reverse commutes. Have you implemented that in your plan? They said service reductions are needed. Have you done that? They said expand employer partnership programs to expand revenue. Are you planning to do that? That's part of this plan, right? They said strengthen investment in high-performing routes. Is this plan doing that?
We're a little short on that one,
Yeah. But there are attempts in this to accomplish that. And it says continue implementing the transit master plan. Will you be doing that? So I don't know where the legislature expects us. If we're going back to the legislature, they expect us to take the findings of this efficiency study and implement them. It sounds to me like that's what the CEO is proposing to do.
We're implementing it in box 2. The only one that you mentioned that we're not implementing is if we can get assurances of an extra $5 million would be
Well,
the cuts.
the CEO is telling us that he's confident we can do that.
Yes, we can do it with the cut. Here's what I'm suggesting. Here's where I'm going with this.
Well, they recommended the cuts. So that was part of the efficiency study. So the legislature is going to be looking to us to do that. We can't just go back to them, as we have historically, and say, we just want more money. Regardless of what the efficiency study says and how the agency has worked out conforming to it and filling the gap that exists. Regardless of all of that, we just want you to give us more money.
No,
That hasn't worked. How's that worked for the last 40 years with it?
That's not what I'm saying.
Well, that's what you said.
You're interrupting him.
I'm saying.
Let him speak. He has the floor.
I'm running the meeting,
I
so I'll
know.
run the meeting.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Poorly.
Poorly, yeah,
And
poorly.
it's always been
Poorly.
good, lets me say whatever I
Always
want to
do.
say.
I always do.
So I don't have a problem with that. I'm saying that we have support strong in the Senate. If the governor were to say, in the next 2 weeks, I will commit to putting, if you need it, up to $5 million in a supplemental budget that I'm gonna submit. It's good enough for me. He's gonna put it in. I have every confidence that that would pass the legislature. One of the objections that was made by the House side was the governor didn't ask for it, so why should we give it to him? And this, under my scenario, he's asking for it in the supplemental budget. I think it would pass the House. If the House Finance Committee ever heard, and I read all of the testimony by all of the folks who testified at all the public hearings, if they ever heard that, we wouldn't have a problem getting an extra $5 million. It would come somewhere else. And to go to the supplemental budget process, that is for adjustments that can be made and are made. Probably not a fair comparison. Last year's supplemental budget moved $1 billion around. The reason for that obviously was because of the expiration of a lot of federal funds. The pandemic years, we've been moving hundreds of millions around in supplemental budgets. If you go to pre-pandemic years, it's not unusual for one agency to go up. Another agency might have savings. They might have a project that's not ready to go forward, or they've now discovered is not feasible. Adjustments are made every year. So what I'm suggesting is we approve the cuts, because I don't have any other choice. I've got nothing else on the table right now that tells me that, you know, I can't just say we're gonna run a deficit. But if the governor says in the next 2 weeks, so I'm suggesting we approve the cuts, but if the governor in the next 2 weeks says, you know, I'm gonna put $5 million in the supplemental budget, I'm comfortable, if we have to come back to me, to rescind the cuts, that'll take care of it. These other blocks all still go forward. We're down in this block here, we're not looking at 10 million. And I believe we could get $5 million for the General Assembly without a doubt if the governor asks for it.
Thank
Then
you.
we don't have to have these cuts.
So you've had discussions with the governor, and I see a letter signed by both you and the governor here. Does that letter, all the discussions you have, give way to the notions that Mr. Benoit is proffering here?
I would have to talk to the governor. But
Okay.
In this form, I believe this is the final version.
This is the deal that you and the governor and his staff have reached. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
Yes, I believe there should be more outreach to dialogue in understanding the challenges of the community, because the community has spoken, the community has its voice, and the people that are going to be affected is the community. So I believe that there should be more outreach to dialogue in understanding the challenges. And has anyone had conversation with the Speaker of the House about increased support going forward? If yes, is it on what?
Well, I think we're trying here today to address this year's budget that was approved. And discussions about next year's budget are coming up. I think there'll be plenty of opportunity for that. I mean, do you have anything to add?
We've talked to everyone we possibly could have talked to over the past year.
Yeah.
I believe this is the final result.
And how many hours would you say of public testimony?
A lot.
Many.
So this,
So I think we're at a deciding point here today. I think that's what the board is here to make a decision on the agreement that, get agreements and the proposal that the CEO has put forward after hearing from the public many hours, conversing with the leadership of the House and Senate, and conversations and discussions with the governor.
yeah, but this
Now it's our turn to either support or not support that. So to that end, I think I would call for a vote. Unless other, yes, go ahead.
So this does not solve the long-term solution, and
Hold your
I urge the board to postpone it and then postpone it.
My motion is to.
No, hold on.
I'm sorry.
Hold on. Go ahead. Go for it.
So I just want to make a statement. I agree with many of the comments that were made. I agree that the transit system is an economic generator for the state. I truly believe that. I believe that we need to service our workers, families, and others who use the system. I am empathetic towards the riders' services that are cut. I believe that we not only need to service everyone, we need to expand where it's needed. The problem, we were given a certain budget amount, and I cannot support an unbalanced budget. But I will continue to try to find solutions and not only recover, but expand where necessary.
Thank you. Any other board members have any comments, questions? Yes.
I agree with Mr. Lombardi, and I agree with Mr. Benoit. You know, if the governor wants to put in a supplemental budget in the next 2 weeks, and we rescind these cuts, then schedule a special meeting and we'll come back and do that. I think I share your pessimism that there will be a special session of the General Assembly this fall. And I think, given what we've heard from the CEO about what is in the performance, 3 weeks ago, we were looking at layoffs across the board. That's been eliminated. You know, one of the things that I think is really undersold, Chris, if I could say it bluntly, you know, ending the privatization of some of the services for the agency and bringing that back in is a big deal. I mean, that undoes a mistake that I think this agency made many years ago. And I think that's going to lead to increased service outcomes for the riders. I don't think anyone here wants these things to go forward. And if someone in the government gives us the budget to undo them, sign me up and we'll get there and we'll undo them. You know, I mean, I know this isn't a universally shared opinion among the members of the board, but I'll raise the taxes on the rich tomorrow if we need to do this. You know, we'll tax every 1%er out there. I mean, I support that. I've been advocating that for years. One of the frustrating elements of being on a board like this is that much of our decision-making processes are determined by other people. And not acting would, if I'm right, Chris, continue to bleed the agency money. If every month that this gets delayed without some kind of agreement, the agency is going deeper and deeper into deficit. Is that right?
We've waited as long as we could.
So,
Can I ask a question? At what point, where are we in that process right now? How close are we to that?
So these cuts are targeted based off the timeline of taking effect by October 1st.
And we need to make that decision
Now,
today. Thank you.
So what is the long-term solution if it involves moving the hubs out of the Kennedy Plaza?
I think we are largely, executing the budget that we've been given at this point. We've talked to everyone, we've been up to the hearings, we've done all those things, and this is where we plan. And in terms of the bus hub, I think that's a long-term project that's been discussed for 10+ years. There'll be but that money can't be used for this. It just can't. So I think that's, all of these things have to be discussed, and I think, frankly, it's been a long budget season. We're a quarter of the way into this budget now, still haven't kind of made the changes that we have to take in order to balance our budget. So I don't know if I answered your question. I apologize.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Well, I don't believe that there's any member of this board, if they had the ability, would not want to expand service. I mean, we've listened to the riders, and we have empathy for them, definitely. And unfortunately, we live in a cost-dependent world, not a cost-independent world. And if it were not for the budget constraints, I mean, as Jim said, we really have not much of an alternative. This is the best case for an unfortunate scenario to make the budget work.
I make a motion, we approve the cuts, subject to if the governor before September 11th says that he's going to put $5 million for supplemental budget, that those cuts be rescinded. Run your choose up now, and if the cuts are in place.
Well, can you make that a form of actual motion?
I move to approve the cuts that management is recommending, provided the governor in the next 2 weeks, i.e. by September 11th, indicates that he will put in a supplemental budget $5 million, or up to $5 million, whatever we end up in the hole for. Then if the cuts are rescinded, and we go forward.
On motion, maybe discussion? Yeah. Well, I'd like to add some commentary. Well, we can't pass an unbalanced budget here. And I think your proposal is doing precisely that. It is proposing cuts without proposing associated changes in revenues. And the proposal that Chris, his staff, the governor, and everybody else that was involved in it put together creates a balanced plan. I would say that if we're going to take action, we take action on the basis of what he's proposing, approve his plan, and if all of the things you want to happen, we can always amend that plan. We can always amend the plan, but at least we have a plan in place that meets the muster of the federal agencies for us to not lose additional funding. So, on that, we're looking for, I guess, a second to the motion. We have none. Do we have any other motions?
Wow. I move to approve the plan proposed by the CEO.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it.
I'm opposed, I'm in favor of the cuts, I'm opposed with not adding my proviso, but, so I guess quickly against, but again, I firmly believe if we don't have the resources,
Okay, that is the final, oh, I'm sorry, there, item number 7 is any additional board questions or answers. I think we're very much with that. So, next item is adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Boom! Shame! Shame! Shame on you, Governor McKee! You had it out and you chose to ignore it. Shame on you.
Thank you.